for you this lesson from Unity of the Keys Spiritual Center. Thank you again, Suzanne and Chris and Linda, for getting us to this place in our service. And so let's take a moment to just breathe. Breathe and get centered right where we are. For what a journey this has been. Together, we've traveled through the Tree of Contemplative Practices, exploring the many pathways that people, spiritual seekers, have taken across time, across culture, across religion, to deepen awareness, to nurture the soul, and to awaken to the presence of the divine. Each branch we have visited has shown us that contemplative practice, mindfulness, is not just one thing. It's a living, breathing ecosystem of ways to connect more deeply with ourselves, with one another, with the earth, and with the infinite. Many of you have not only studied these practices, but have experienced them also. You've tried some new things. Perhaps you have allowed them to settle into your hearts and into the rhythm of your lives. The greatest invitation has been the simplest: to sit in silence, to start with 5 minutes, stretch to 7, push to 10, and eventually arrive at 20 minutes every day of sacred stillness. 20 minutes, long enough to shift the course of a day, short enough that every one of us has that available. And the silence is not an escape, it's an arrival. It is the practice of turning inward, not to retreat from life, but to become more fully awake to life and to the divine. We come with the intention of connection, our awareness of our connection, for we are truly always connected with the divine, however we name it or imagine it. We might imagine it as infinite God beyond and outside of us, or intimate God, friend, personal beside us, or innermost God within us, our Christ consciousness. Some may sense all three faces of the divine at once, and others may rest in only one. And the truth is, there is no wrong way. We are already connected. The silence simply helps us remember who we are. And when we allow this connection to grow stronger, something beautiful happens. The divine begins to take priority over our humanity, not in a way that denies our human experience, but in a way that allows our deeper essence to lead, to live from that space. Our choices become less about fear and more about love. Our actions spring not just from habit or ego, but from connection and from compassion. This truth is not new. The sages and the mystics of every tradition have spoken about it. The Hindu Upanishads teach that the Atman, the soul within us, is not separate from Brahman, the eternal absolute. And Buddhists teach that beneath the layers of conditioning and craving lies the radiant purity of heart within every being, a pure, pure heart. Now, early Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament, tended to see God as outside and beyond, but later prophetic writings pointing towards God's covenant being written on the heart, God's covenant being written on the heart. And in the Christian scriptures, the New Testament, God is found both beyond and within, dwelling in the very fabric of human beings as spirit. For spirit dwells within, making us not in the flesh, but in spirit, as we're told by the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 8, verse 9, and enabling us to have a divine nature through Christ. That comes to us from 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 4. So what these voices across time share is a conviction that there is more to us than flesh and personality. There is a divine light, an indwelling presence. And when we devote ourselves to the silence, even for 20 minutes, we give that light room to grow brighter. Now, of course, the ego resists. It always does. It whispers, you don't have time. You're too busy. 20 minutes is too long. We do have time, and we make time for what we decide matters. So here's a couple of examples from my life recently. A while back, I was using this app on my phone called Noom. It's a guide to healthy eating, and I still use a lot of what I learned through that program. So they ask you at the beginning to commit to how much time you will give to the education part, the lessons each day. And I was pretty stingy. I'm a busy woman, you know. I have a full-time ministerial job that I love, and a husband and a house and responsibilities and family time and adult children and grandchildren. We hike, we camp, busy, busy, busy. We can go there, can't we? So I committed to 5 to 7 minutes each day, and I did that. I fulfilled that. Unless there was a really fun quiz, then I had more time because I love quizzes. Or extra credit because there was my overachiever coming out. I had time for that. I'm sure that most days I spent closer to 20 minutes than 5 to 7. So now I'm on an app called Duolingo. I'm not really trying to master Spanish. I'm mainly trying to keep my brain active. So I commit to about the same time, 5 to 7 minutes a day. And I have completed my lessons 241 days in a row. Now that seems like a lot. And I know, and you know, people with lots more days. Sherry, Kevin, Robin, Beth, my friends Alice and Mona, a lot more than 241 days. 5 to 7 minutes, that's all, each day. Unless I get a message that I have a boost, double points, or triple for the next 10 minutes. All of a sudden, I have another 10 minutes available, or another 15. We do have 20 minutes that we can devote to the silence every day. We do. I am convinced of that. It simply needs to be something that we want to do, that we choose to do, that we put our spiritual needs as a priority in our lives. Our spiritual growth is part of our self-care, our self-caring. And I've seen firsthand that consistency transforms those small steps into powerful, significant changes in our lives. Think of silence as a sacred investment. Now, in financial terms, we might use ROI, return on investment. But here, the return is immeasurable. From 20 minutes of silence, we receive greater clarity and compassion and groundedness and peace. We shift our vibration, and in doing so, we shift the atmosphere around us, as well as the cells within our bodies. Our devotion to silence is not for us alone. It blesses others. It radiates into our families, our communities, and even into the collective field of humanity. This is self-care, yes, but it is also other care. It is compassion. When we choose to anchor in spirit, we bring more love into our world. Now today we move into the final 2 branches of the tree, ritual and cyclical practices, and activist. Now, the first ritual and cyclical practices are about rhythm and memory and meaning. Rituals are sacred pauses in the flow of life. They remind us of who we are, where we belong, and what matters most. Some rituals are ancient and communal. Others are personal and intimate. Some are grand ceremonies. Others are smaller gestures. One simple example is creating a personal sacred space. It doesn't need to be elaborate. It can be a corner of a table, a shelf, or even a windowsill. It can become an altar, a place upon which we put something that's meaningful to us. A candle, a stone, a photo, a flower. And just each morning, pause there. Notice the beautiful creation that you've put together. Even your morning grooming rituals. Light a candle or turn on one of those small LED tea lights as you brush your teeth. Let that small action remind you, I am light. I carry light. I bring light. Rituals also include retreats and festivals and ceremonies. You know, a retreat is not simply a getaway. It's a deliberate stepping aside from ordinary activity to renew the spirit. Even a single day set aside in stillness and reflection can reset the heart in profound ways. There are traditional ceremonies we share in this community, Unity of the Keys, lots of them. The burning bowl that we have at the end of the year in our letters to God, our white stone ceremony at the year's beginning, the Easter flower transformation of the cross, the blessing of the animals, the Thanksgiving circle, the Blue Christmas service, the Christmas Eve candlelight. Each one anchors us in rhythm. Each one weaves memory and identity and belonging. Because rituals matter. They root us in what is eternal, and they link us across the generations. They stabilize us in times of change. They give us language for gratitude, for our grief, or for our hope. They hold the language of the wisdom of our ancestors, and they transmit it forward. They build community. They preserve culture. And perhaps most importantly, they turn ordinary moments into the awareness of holy ground. Think of a birthday. A birthday could just be another day. With ritual, with celebration, it becomes a milestone of gratitude, love, and recognition. Or lighting a candle and remembering a loved one. The flame does not bring them back, but it connects us to the truth that love endures. And in this way, rituals are about infusing time with meaning. They are about returning us again and again to the center of who we are. Now, the final branch we turn to is the activist branch. If silence roots us inward, then activism stretches us outward. The two are separate but connected. For true activism springs from contemplation, and true contemplation blossoms into compassionate action. It's the fifth of our unity principles, I act. Now, activist practices include pilgrimages and volunteering, vigils, marches, bearing witness. These are ways of embodying our values, of bringing love and justice into the world around us. Now, a pilgrimage may be a sacred walk across a land, such as the Camino de Santiago, as Robin and Kevin have done. But it can also be a journey we make with spiritual intention, walking a labyrinth, hiking with awareness, traveling to a place of historical or social significance to honor its lessons, its history. Pilgrimage is less about the destination and more about the transformation that comes through the journey. Work and volunteering can also be contemplative when approached with awareness, whether we're collecting donations or cleaning up the environment, helping a thrift store, serving food, mentoring a child, all can become practices of compassion when we see them as extensions of our spiritual life, when we recognize our connection with all. Now, vigils and marches hold another kind of power. They bring people together, not against something, but for something, for peace, for justice, for healing. As Mother Teresa once said, if you hold an anti-war rally, I shall not attend. But if you hold a pro-peace rally, invite me. The difference is subtle but profound. One centers in opposition. The other opens the door to possibility. And sometimes activism looks like simply bearing witness, being present to suffering, injustice, or grief without turning away. Bearing witness does not always fix a situation, but it dignifies it. It says, you are seen. You are not alone. Your pain matters. This is activism as a contemplative practice, not driven by anger or by ego, but by love and presence. Not reactive, but responsive. Not burning out, but burning brightly with a steady flame of spirit. Now that we have explored the full tree of contemplative practices, what remains is integration. We know we do not need to climb every branch at once. We do not need to master every practice. Instead, we ask, which branch is calling me now? Which practice feels alive for me in this season of my life today? Silence will always be your anchor. Perhaps ritual is your doorway, or activism is your path. The beauty of the tree is that all the branches are nourished by the same roots. All lead to the same fruit: awareness, compassion, awakening, transformation, love. You might imagine weaving them into a rhythm in your life. Silence each morning, a ritual once a week, a practice of service once a month. And throughout, a steady awareness that every breath, every step can be contemplative when taken with intention. 20 minutes of silence each day, a sacred space in your home, a ritual of gratitude, a step towards compassionate service. Each is a way of saying yes to life, to spirit, to sacred love, to your spiritual growth. The Tree of Contemplative Practices is not a map to follow once. It is a garden to live within. May we continue, each one of us, to tend it together with open hearts, with steady practice, and with joy, great joy. And so it is.